Very good morning, students. We are going to continue the same chapter, classes and objects. Before getting into this today's session, we'll just check it out. What are the topics we have covered into a previous session? We have discussed about a member functions. What is a member functions and how to define a member functions inside the class as well as outside the class. With a full syntax and with an example we have already discussed. Let us see what are the topics we are going to cover in this class. Firstly, we are going to start an example with a defining a class member function inside the class as well as your outside the class. Here, we are going to see a small example how to declare a member functions inside the class and outside the class definition. We have taken a small example just to accept a number of items and display the cost. In this program, we are not going to have any calculation part. Remember it again, we are not going to have any calculation part. We are going to just accept a number of item and display the cost of the item. So I have created one of a class called as an item. One of a class called as an item. Once I want to start my class with the open brace, and I have created a two data members, that is number, cost, with a two different data type. One is int, one is float. I have never specified any access specifier. Once I never specify any access specifier, it is understood that it is defaultly a private. Under public, I have created two member functions, that is get data and put data. How many member functions? Two member functions. One is get data, one is put data. In a get data, I have passed a two arguments, that is int a, float b. You people have to clearly observe here. I have passed a two arguments telling that int a, float b. The arguments can be separated by using a comma operator. Once you see the void put data, which the function is written next to the member function itself. Once you observe the void get data, I don't have any body. I have just have a function header. It is understood that once you have been placed a semicolon, it is understood that it is the declaration part is outside the class. Here, once I want to start my body of my inside the class, I don't rectify or have any semicolon here. Once your semicolon is given for the get data, it is understood that it is the declaration part is outside the definition. So we'll just see that in a void put data, I have displayed cout the number, cout the number which is to be a data members. Number is nothing but the data members, which is initialized under the put data. And I have one more thing called as cost. Cost is also one more data member which belongs to a private. We'll see it in next slide what it happens into the upcoming program. In a previous slide, we have observed that what are the member functions we have created and what are the data members we have created. We had a two member functions, that is put data as well as get data. We have seen a put data into previous slides just to display it as it was written inside the class without having any operator help. But here in a continuation of this example, I have created the declaring of outside the class definition. Just check it out here. The void is a return type and item is a class name. Item is a class name followed by one of the operator called as a scope resolutor operator. One of the operator called as a scope resolutor operator. This operator helps us to define the members outside the class, and getData is a member function which we have defined inside the class, and I'm going to write the function outside the class. I already defined that getData as a two arguments, that is int a as well as your float b. We have already declared that I have a two arguments, that is int a as well as your float b, with a different data type. Now I'm going to pass a value for a first data member is equals to a, cost is equals to b. That is nothing but the data member which is initialized inside the private, as a data members initializes the private, and the int a which is initialized with the member function, I'm going to pass a value of a to the number and value of b to the cost, and I'm going to finish my member functions by closing a open close brace. Once I close it, I'm going to start write my main program. In the upcoming slides, we'll see that how we are going to initialize an object. Before getting into detail, just we'll have a glance. An object have been created inside the main program, telling that class name followed by a object. I have created one of the object called as an X. When I want to access any data members or member functions which belongs to any class, it should be accessed by using one of a thing called as an object with the operator called as a dot operator. X dot get data. Once I access x dot one get data, I'm going to pass the value of 250. 250, it's an integer value, comma, the second value is 10.5. See here, once I have first value which belongs to an int, once I finish the int, the 250 which is going to hold into a class. Inside the class, 250 will be passed to the a variable, and 10.5 value will be holded inside the class declaration, the two values which has been passed. After passing inside, they are going to find whether the inside the class or outside the class. Once we have a semicolon over there inside the class, it is understood that it is being written outside the class. The value which is being passed for the first argument, that is 250, which is allocates into the first location, that is a. The 10.5 value which is being allocated to the b. Now a value is 250 and b value is 10.5. The working of its ends here. And now I'm going to access a second function telling that x point put data into a previous slide. This put data which consists of the a, which is the number which is being printed, it is going to print the 250, and cost which is going to print 10.5. With this small example, we can clearly understand that how we have declared inside the class as well as the outside the class. In the upcoming slides, we'll discuss how to create an objects. Defining object of a classes. A class provides a blueprint for an object. So basically, an object is created from a class. We declare object of a class with exactly the same sort of declaration that we declare variable of a basic type. An object is a real world entity which identifiably entity with some character, that is nothing but an attribute, and behavior, it's nothing but your functions. An object is an instant of class. Object is a instant of class. Object are sometimes called as an instant variable. Object sometimes we call that as a instance variable. A object is normally defined in the main program. It is normally defined in the main program. It is important to note that private and protect member cannot be accessed directly using direct member access operator dot operator. We will learn how private and protect member can be accessed. We will learn how to access private and protect member can be accessed. Accessing a member of classes. The member of a classes can be data or a functions. Private and protect member of the classes can be accessed only through the member of a classes. No functions, no function outside the class includes a statement to access directly. What is that? No function outside the class can include the statement to access directly. The public data members of an object of an object of a class can be accessed using direct member access operator called as a dot operator. I repeat it again, students. The public data members of object of a class can be accessed using direct member access operator called as a dot operator. Here we have a general syntax for defining object of classes. As we know that as we know that the object is being created into a main program. A general syntax which tells that the class is already created, telling that class is a keyword, user defined name. User defined name. For an example, I'm going to take it as X. I'm going to take it as something as X as a class name. And I'm going to create with the member functions and the data members within a private as well as your public. Once a class is created, I'm going to declare my objects inside the main program. The objects have been created inside the main program. How to create in the sense? By using the user defined name, For an example, I have given as X. X is my class name. X is my class name. X, X is my class name followed by n number of objects. Example, object 1, object 2, object 3, etc. It may be a object 1 or 2. It's your own wish to keep a name for an object. This is how you're going to create. The general syntax is followed by user name. User defined name is a class name. User defined name is a class name followed by the objects. Objects have been separated by using a one of a symbol called as a comma operator. Once all the object is been created, the last object should consist of a semicolon. Should be consist of the semicolons. Once the semicolon is given, it is understood that all the declaration of the object is ends for the user defined name. Here we have a syntax for accessing of a members of a classes. Already we know that the members are nothing but a data members and member functions. We'll see that first how to access a data members. We are going to access a data members by followed by name of the user defined object. What is that? Name of the user defined object, that is object name, followed by one of the operator called as a member access specifier, the symbol called as a dot operator. What is that? Member access specifier. Which access specifier it is? Dot operator. Dot operator which is used to access a member functions, that is data member followed by a data member. And once you go ahead with the syntax for accessing of member functions, followed by name of the user defined object dot member functions followed by an argument. Here, once you see the two difference between the data members and the member functions, here you're going to have the same thing, dot member functions with an argument data members. These are the two syntax how to access the members of a classes. Once again, I'll repeat you. For to access a data members, object name dot data members, object name dot data members. To access a member function, object name dot member function within arguments, member function within arguments. These are the two methods to access a object of data members and member functions. After seeing a general syntax of how to create an object and how to access objects for data members, how to access objects and member functions, we'll just see a small example which we have created one of the class called as a student. In a student, I have a data members called as a roll number, name, as well as gender, as well as a age. These are the thing data members I have created under the student. Public, I have created a two member functions, that is get data as well as your display data. Already we have seen a general syntax that after creating a class, we are going to create an object into a main program. Here in this example, we have not started with the main program. For an example, we have created an object telling that a student is a class name. Student is a class name followed by S1, S2, and as well as S3 other objects created onto a class student. This is how you're going to create an object into a classes. We'll see the complete full example into a next slide with a complete program. Here we have a second example. I'm going to create a class called as a num. In this example, just we are going to pass a two values for two different member functions by using a two objects. We have created a two objects and I'm going to pass a two different values for a different member function. This is an example. Here I have created a num. Num is nothing but a class name followed by private. In a private, I have declared x and y as a data members, and I have created two functions called as sum and difference. Sum as well as a difference. I have two member function, that is sum and the difference, and sum which is having a two arguments int p and int q, and same thing I have the two arguments int p as well as your int q, and I'm going to close my class. I already told you that after closing a class I'm going to create a main program, void main. Once I create a void main, I'm going to create an object. How we are going to create an object? By using a class name called as a num. Num is your class name, and I'm going to create a two objects. One is nothing but S1 as well as a S2. Dear students, you clearly understood that how we have created an object. Now we'll see that how we are going to access the member function using an object. I have created an object called as an S1. S1 is my object. Once I create an S1, how I'm going to access it? I'm going to take the first object as S1 as first dot sum. Once I access using operator called as an dot sum, the sum is being activated. Sum is being activated. That is, it is going to check that S1 is an object. S1 is an object. It is going to check whether the S1 is an object. The object S1 is an object. It just belongs to a class name called as a num. Once it checks that S1 belongs to class name called as a num, it is checks that whether the num is being a class or not. Once a num is a class, it indicates that it is indicates that sum is a member function in the class called as a num, and it sees that how many argument is passed. It sees that how many argument. It has a two arguments, that is 200 as well as your 300. 200 as well as your 300. Once it has been accessed, the 200 and 300 passes to the class. In a class, the 200 is being passes to the first argument called as a P, and second argument the value 300 which is being passed to the second argument called as in Q. Same wise, once I am going to access second object telling that S2 dot def, that is nothing but difference. Once it has been accessed, it is going to check that whether S2 is an object. S2 is an object belongs to a num. It checks that whether the num is a class. Yes, num is a class. And it checks that inside the class definition, it is going to check that whether we have a member function called as a dif difference. Yes, we have. The first argument, as soon as it finds a member function, it is going to pass the first argument 600 to the P, and comma, it is going to pass a second value to the second argument called as a Q. This is how the object is created and accessed, and we never had any function to be written. We just initialized when we have just declared for this example. In upcoming classes, we'll see with a complete declaration with a complete example. Our next topic is arrays as members of class. Before getting into the arrays as members of a class, we'll just see that what is an array. An array is a collection of elements of the same type placed continuous memory allocations that can be individually referenced by using a index to a unique identifier. Example, 5 values of type int can be declared as an array without having to declare 5 different variables. An array can be used as a data member of a class. Array can be used as private or public member of a class. In this example, we have seen class we have created a class called as a marks. In a marks, for a live example, a single student will not be having a single subject. The student which is going to have n number of subjects, so that we cannot declare the n number of variables. The marks I'm going to declare as m of 5. I have been passed the array for data members as m of 5, and I usually, obviously, when I'm going to use an array, I needed to go for index addressing for a for loop. So I have taken as I. In a public, I have created a two member function, that is the setVal and display. SetVal as well as your display. This is a small class where I have created with the two data members, that is m of 5 with the array and I, and two member functions selling that setVal as well as a display. The array value m is primitive member. It is a private member of a class marks. Here we have written the member functions outside the class, telling that marks is a class. Marks is a class. The marks class is already written into a previous slide, and I'm going to create a function for the setVal. SetVal, where the function it is going to just accept the data of 5 marks. How? By using an array into the classes. Enter the marks for I is equal to 0, I less than 5. I is equals to 0 is nothing but the initial value, and I less than 5 is the final value. and I++ is a part where it is going to increment, and it is going to store all the 5 values into a C in M of I. In a M of I, all the 5 values which is being stored continuously, that is M of 0, M of 1, M of 2, M of 3 as well as M of 4. It never stores onto the M of 5. Why? Because I less than 5 condition fails. Once it has been stored till M of 4, the continuous allocation of 5 marks is being done. The complete function stops, and again I'm going to access a one more function, that is member function display. In this display also we are going to use an array. How? In the sense, the cout, the marks are for I is equals to 0 semicolon I less than 5. Whatever the marks is being stored in M of 0, M of 1, M of 2, 1, M of 3 and M of 4, it has been displayed by using the statement called as cout M of I. This is how you are going to use an arrays into the classes. We'll see what are the other topics into the next classes. Before stopping this class, ending this session, we'll just check it out. Here is your assignment for today's session. What are the assignments are? What is classes, objects, data members, member function? These are the 1 mark question based, and we have one 5 mark question based, that is explain class definition and class declaration within syntax and example. These assignments should be completed before the next session start. Thank you, students. We'll see you into the next session. Thank you.